Hey everybody, here's something I thought it would be interesting possibly to reflect upon, and that is how it's become, quote, right-wing or, quote, far-right to be a, quote, conspiracy theorist. Sorry to put everything in quotes, but I just, you can't, you gotta, you have to do it because the way that there's so many people misrepresenting, there's so many dishonest, disingenuous media types slinging around words like these, descriptors like these, and as annoying as it sounds to always do this and put it in quotes, you have to do it because you can't just accept their terms as if they're as if they point to some deeper reality when they don't. But since when did conspiracy thinking become, or what's been called conspiracy thinking, conspiracy theorizing, or whatever? Since when did that become a right-wing thing? I remember I don't engage with other people online that much, but I do remember somebody posting something somewhere on YouTube or Instagram or someplace, saying, well, conservative, most right-wingers are conspiracy theorists, or most conspiracy thinking seems to be a right-wing thing. And he was disparaging, of course, conservatives by calling them conspiracy theorists, just the sort of typical rhetoric you hear these days. But I remarked to him, well, look, assassination of JFK, assassination of RFK, assassination of MLK, the big three. Back then, who were the conspiracy theorists? What were they associated with? What side of the political spectrum were they generally associated with? It would be the left. Not the establishment left, maybe, but the left, generally speaking. And it was more the conservative types back then who tended to think, we can trust in institutions like the FBI and the CIA and other alphabet agencies. They've got our backs. They're real Americans. They're looking out for us. And if you're against them, you're probably a commie. I'm speaking hyperbolically, or not being all that nuanced here, but I'm saying this is the general, how the paradigm stood at that time, generally speaking. So then I should also throw in the assassination of Malcolm X, which doesn't get as much play as the other three, but those assassinations were all of figures that were considered to be liberal, and so it was widely thought that it was right-wing forces who had done them in, and it was mostly leftists and liberals who were saying, the official story is not accurate here. It's not right. It's not true. And that's a fact. That's just a fact. Okay. And moving, a few decades forward, to 9/11, when that happened, who were the ones who were mostly saying, like the loose change people, I don't know the names of others, but just generally speaking, in the early days of 9/11 revisionism, it was mostly left-leaning types of people. Again, not establishment leftists, probably not Democrats, who hold office or anything like that. Though maybe in a couple cases that would have been the case. But again, it was mostly a left-wing phenomenon to question the official story of 9/11. I mean, Bush was hated by the left, and so and Cheney was hated even more by the left at that time, and so it was thought, this is we aren't being told the truth. This was something that the neocons and the government did. They pulled off this false flag in order to justify their ambitions for renewing American imperialism, in places like Iraq or Afghanistan or elsewhere, other places that they wanted to go. And by the way, all of that is true. I believe all of that, and I was sort of partial to that point of view even back then, even though I was a conservative, kind of, in a way, a normie conservative, but I really didn't care for the whole, welfare warfare state idea. The whole, we have to be in favor of this war no matter what. We have to get behind this war no matter what. That mentality never sat well with me. But at the time, it was people on the left who were saying that kind of stuff. So somehow, between 2001 and now, somehow conspiracy thinking became got to be construed as a right-wing phenomenon. And I think in some ways it is now a right-wing phenomenon, but it's more complicated than that, obviously, for the reasons that I've given. So, because namely that we've got all of these prior cases in which the people who were sounding the alarm, pointing out the flaws in the official story, they tended to be on the left. I think there were maybe some exceptions on the right. Like, I think the Birchers were they didn't like the Vietnam War, and they maybe thought that JFK was hit by the CIA and stuff like that. But they're the exception that proves the rule. So we've also seen how for people on the right now, there's this grave distrust of alphabet agencies. See, this is my super suit today. I'm wearing my super shirt. I'm God hates feds, man. And questioning of groups like the FBI and the CIA and corporate interests who are now relentlessly virtue signaling for feminism and for LGBT and for every other trendy thing, and for drag queen story hour. It wasn't that wasn't the case 20 years ago, 30 years ago, certainly amongst the corporate elites. It was a much more and I've talked about this elsewhere as well. The big turning point to me was the end of the Cold War. I think that was hugely significant because it was at the end of the Cold War that those forces who were pro-American normalcy suddenly turned their guns back at the same Americans. I say suddenly, but I think it was gradually. It didn't happen all of a sudden. But we saw them eventually. The guns that were pointed outward got turned back towards us, and now up to the point now where we have a situation where the government types, the ones who are in charge, are trying to say that the real terrorists are the patriots. The real terrorists are white men, from middle America with conservative values who are church-going and traditional. They're the ones who are most dangerous. And so there's this real atmosphere of hostility between conservative traditionalists and institutions like the FBI and the CIA and other other groups like of a like nature. So somehow there was this big turnaround anyway with conspiracy thinking, and I just think that's worth mentioning. It's worth pointing out, lest anyone get overly simplistic, and believe that somehow the way things are now, it's always been this way. In some ways, what we see now is a big time reversal from the way things used to be. And I wouldn't have seen this paradigm shift coming, 20 years ago. I wouldn't have seen a day where, the Army, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Armed Forces was not just, did not just have a policy against homosexuals being in the armed forces, or have a don't ask, don't tell policy. And now, we see drag shows and stuff like that on our U.S. Army bases. And, and if you're against it, then you're bad. It's not like I didn't see that coming. A lot has changed, and the new rebels are, of course, the new punk rock is right-wing conservatism. The new anti-establishmentism is right-wing conservatism today. And now we also see that these same groups are constantly reviled by supposedly respectable institutions, and that we're told to believe that they are deeply disturbed and violent and untrustworthy people. Now, just to bring it full circle with Ohio, you have this situation that's very awkward for the powers that be. Unless they did it intentionally. Well, even if they did it intentionally, if what happened with the derailment was what was intended to happen, it's still got to be kind of awkward to, if you're part of the group that made this happen to this community intentionally, because you hate this segment of the population, the Rust Belt, the white working class, the Trump voter base, which is predominant in that part of the country, the Appalachia section of America. The kind of poor people that liberals and leftists do not virtue signal with. They don't go to these places and show what good people they are by dwelling with these kind of poor people. They would rather be with the cool kind of poor people, like the black and brown poor people in urban settings. So now it kind of comes full circle, where you have this situation where the administration that's currently in charge absolutely hates, loathes, and despises these people. That it just so happens that their policies have led to, either their policies have led to this accident that happened, which poisoned this community and much of the environment and much of the farmland and the drinking water and so forth, or the other alternative, which when you see things like, why do they film this movie White Noise, which has this almost exact same incident happen? Why do they do that? Again, a case of predictive programming, which is another whole nother issue, but it's an interesting issue that gets talked about other places. Why that? Why do we have that happen? Why does the EPA, the CDC change their policies on these kinds of chemicals, and make it so that their lethality is not as emphasized. Something else I've talked about. And why did this digital health tracking system, why was that put into effect in East Palestine, Ohio, just weeks before, or maybe it was even days before? I think it was late January that this happened. All those things definitely, if they don't raise an eyebrow for you, they should. But anyway, my larger point is, now you have, this subsection of America, which at one point the powers that be would have, during the Cold War years, during the 70s and 80s, it would have been like these good, church-going, middle American, salt of the earth type of people. They're good people. They work hard in the factories, and we should value them and treasure them, and that's the message that they would put out back then. And now it's just, these people are just terrible, disgusting opioid addicts, and good riddance to bad rubbish. Basically, for the more of them die of opioid addiction, the better, because they're just also so disgusting, such awful people who vote for Trump and have traditional values and probably are plotting terrorism. And this is maybe not the direct message that's put forth by the powers that be, but it's basically, when you strip everything away, it's how they feel about these people. And now we're in this situation where it's become much more and more of a focal point, and more and more people are talking about it, and fewer people are being diverted from it. It's big news right now. Maybe I'm sure at some point it'll vanish from the headlines. But in any case, it sort of underlines the larger reversal that I'm talking about. This reversal of trends, which is very, again, something that I would not have predicted. I don't know if anybody would have predicted this kind of this kind of development. And yet here we are. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Tell me your thoughts below.